Moderator, I have pleasure in presenting the report of the Church of Scotland Trust. The Trust's remit covers 4 distinct areas of work: third-party trusts, Pakistan, the Holy Land, and the International Presbytery. COVID-19 has had some impact on our work, and I will mention that as I address each area of activity briefly in turn. Firstly, third-party trusts. The Church of Scotland Trust is trustee of some 50 trusts set out to benefit in one way or another the work of the Kirk. The size of these trusts range from quite small funds of a few thousand to some with 6 or even 7-figure capital sums. Income, and in some cases capital too, from these funds is then available to meet the charitable objectives of that trust. Trust objectives vary, ranging from providing educational grants to divinity students, study grants to ministers, various welfare purposes for existing and retired ministers and their families, financial support for specific congregations or presbyteries, and support for the work of various councils and committees, in particular Faith Nurture, Faith Impact, and Crossreach. Our overriding responsibility is to make sure that charitable funds are properly applied for the designated purpose. If a significant change in circumstances occur, we may consider whether some reorganisation of our trust is appropriate. This may be possible with the consent of the Office of the Scottish Charity Regulator. We are responsible for overseeing the investment of fund capital, which is mainly in the Church of Scotland Investors Trust funds, while ensuring that there is also sufficient cash resources available to meet claims or grants made for each trust. This is a very efficient way of managing trust and endowment funds, as very often small trusts are burdened with substantial administration costs. The General Treasurer and the Church Law Departments do receive a fee for the work they carry out on behalf of the Church of Scotland Trust, but there is no individual administration fee charged to each trust. It is therefore worth mentioning that for anyone considering creating a legacy to benefit some aspect of the Kirk's work, the Church of Scotland Trust would be a very cost-effective and efficient trustee. The Trust Clerk, Madeline Sproul, would be happy to advise on this. Generally, there is a satisfactory stream of well-qualified applications for funds. In this year of COVID, investment income has been somewhat reduced. And in a few cases, consequently, we've had to trim the scale of awards made. We have to hope that in coming years, both investment income and the amount of awards may be restored to previous levels. I'd now like to deal with Pakistan. Commissioners not be aware of the scale of the Christian community in Pakistan. While Christians represent a very tiny minority of the population, there are between 2 and 3 million Christians in Pakistan. Compare that to Scotland. Church of Scotland interests are located in the Sialkot district, which is in the northeast of the Punjab province. Now, Church of Scotland properties in former colonial lands throughout the world have many years ago been successfully transferred to local national churches. However, Pakistan is a notable exception. In Sialkot, the Church of Scotland Trust continues to have a large property portfolio comprising land, churches, residences and other buildings, but is under an obligation to divest itself of these interests. In terms of a 1958 Act of Parliament, the Trust may transfer the property to an appropriate authority, being a trust or other organisation legally incorporated and properly constituted for holding property on behalf of the Christian faith. Faith Impact Forum and the Trust need to be satisfied as the new entities standing. Failing this, the church interests may be transferred to a government or local authority body. The Pakistan question is both time-consuming and complex. The Trust works closely with Faith Impact in a Pakistani strategy group, ably supported by the Asia Secretary Sandy Snedden and our own clerk Madeline Sproul. We also continue to enjoy the long-time support of our attorney Dr. Peter David, whose knowledge and local contacts in Sialkot have proved invaluable over the years. We have been in negotiation with the Church of Pakistan over many years to establish this trust without much success. Hampering our efforts has been a long series of court cases concerning disputed property title, illegal occupancy, and even the legitimacy of church appointments. Against this background, we have had many false dawns. But in 2019, we were able to agree the creation of a new succession trust, which was signed by local Pakistani nominated trustees and then duly signed by members of the Trust and the then World Mission Council. It was returned to Pakistan for registration with the court, and that is where it remains. So it has not yet been registered. And even when that is accomplished, the next task will be for the succession trust trustees to formally transfer all properties to the new trust within a maximum period of 10 years. While COVID might have added to these delays, it is not the sole cause, and we remain concerned that the expensive litigation necessary to defend the Church's property portfolio continues to be a drain on the Church of Scotland's scarce financial resources. In past years, we have indicated to the General Assembly that if matters cannot be resolved, then we may have to resort to the less than ideal option of transferring the Church's property assets to the Pakistani government. In recent months, we've again signalled to the Assembly trustees that we might very soon have to actively pursue this course. I should now turn to our work concerning the Holy Land. The Church of Scotland Trust acts as trustee on behalf of Faith Impact Forum and the Presbytery of Jerusalem, holding heritable and other assets on their behalf. As has been the usual practice, the Church of Scotland Trust is consulted by Faith Impact Forum on all major financial, land and property developments. A current example is the renovation of the guest house in Jerusalem. A designated steering group has overseen this work carried out during 2019 and 20. Work progressed satisfactorily and is almost complete. However, the imposition of COVID-related restrictions has meant that the final snagging work and project sign-off has not yet been completed. The COVID restrictions in Israel have also had a significant effect on trading results in the hotel at Tiberias and the delayed reopening of the guest house. The financial situation is being managed carefully, and funds are in place to ensure continuity during lockdown, which at the time of writing is now being eased again throughout Israel. Lastly, let me deal with the International Presbytery. Since 2016, the Church of Scotland Trust has a broadly similar role in the International Presbytery to that of the general trustees within Scotland. The process is now well established, and proposals concerning property matters are being routinely reviewed by the Trust. It must be recognised that there are particular challenges in making this work. Congregations and kirk sessions are typically very small. The area of the presbytery is very large, making communication difficult. And the property portfolio includes some very high-value assets, many in need of costly repairs, with very limited financial resources to deal with it. A number of significant developments and transactions have been reviewed during the year, including the downsizing or replacement of man's properties. In conclusion, it is a privilege for me to chair the Church of Scotland Trust. In its membership, the Trust has 2 former moderators, the principal clerk, together with experienced accountants, lawyers and surveyors. We are ably supported by the General Treasurer and the Law Department. In particular, we are indebted to our clerk, Madeleine Sproul, for her first-rate professionalism and dedication, not least in this time of COVID in keeping the Trust's business affairs functioning efficiently. The deliverance calls for the reappointment of Mrs Morag Angus and Mr Leon Marshall to the Trust. I heartily commend these appointments to Assembly. Finally, I take this opportunity of tabling the Trust accounts for the year ending 31st December 2020. Copies of these accounts are available for inspection by request to the Principal Clerk. I commend the report to the Assembly, and as I am not a Commissioner, I ask the Principal Clerk to move the deliverances.